All right, so good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Or good evening, whenever you're watching this. This is part one of our semester one final review. So today is more about understanding concepts. This is the math portion of it. I talked to you guys about in class how it's very important for you guys to know some of the math related to it. And this is what we're talking about today. So on the test, you may or may not see an equation like this, but what's going to happen is that you're going to have to solve for a variable. All right, in this case, we're going to solve for the letter F. So if you guys remember, it's solving for like a literal equation. There's a couple of these on here. And what you're doing is you're just moving things around. You're not actually getting rid of anything. You're just moving stuff from one side to the other. So in this case, we're going to move everything away from the letter F. Now, what would be the easiest way, or what is the one thing that you guys see when you're looking at this? The big thing with that, if you're looking at it, is you have a giant fraction here. And if it's multiplied by something, the easiest way to get rid of it is actually to multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, so you multiply both sides by 9/5. All right, and when that happens, this would be 45, and that's 45, right? And so technically they cancel out and become 1. So you would just rewrite it as 9/5c equals f minus 32. And then from there, your simple setup would be to solve for f, add 32 to both sides, add 32, and when you do that, this cancels each other out, so what's left is f. So I'm going to rewrite it with f equals, and here's your answer. And then it is plus 32. Okay, simple enough. Make sure you guys can do that setup and modify it accordingly. Now down here, when we get to these areas here, one of the things you want to look for, guys, is understanding what variable you're solving for. So in this case, it's g, so we're going to get rid of everything around the g. So you can't, this is multiplication, f times g. So you don't want to move that first. What you do want to do is move anything away that is adding or subtracting to it. So in this case, this is subtracting from it. So we want to move this first because that's the easiest thing. According to the order of operations when you're solving literal equations, you're moving this. One thing I told everybody in class is as you guys move forward in high school, especially when you get to chemistry, you're going to do it a little bit in geometry. After that, when you get to chemistry, you will be rewriting literal equations all the time, where you're just taking stuff and an equation and you're moving things from left to right. So don't get freaked out by this because this is something you're going to have to learn to do. Now, all these letters, we just moved it over. We're going to divide now by f because that's multiplication. You divide this by f, and your setup is 10j plus 9h all over the letter f. And then, ladies and gentlemen, oh, and this should be g, sorry. So that's what g equals. And, ladies and gentlemen, you are done. Okay, there's your answer. We didn't get rid of anything. We just moved everything away from the f, or away from the g, over to the other side. On this equation over here, same thing. We're going to solve for m. So first thing would be to add p to both sides. And when you do that setup, you got p minus n equals, and then what's left, which is 10m. And then you would divide by 10. So now you divide by 10 here, divide by 10 here, m equals p minus n divided by 10, and that is your answer. Another aspect on this side over here, you're looking at this equation, and what you're doing is solving it for d2. So it's a equals 1/2, and then it's d1, d2. And they're both multiplying by it. So what you want to do now is let's get rid of the fraction first, because like I said, for some of you, that's the one thing that's always been a stopping point. When you multiply both sides by 2, this becomes 2a, and then 1/2 times 2 cancels each other out to be 1, and it's d1 times d2. And now you want to get rid and isolate the d2. You would divide both sides by d1, and when you do that, you guys end up with letter D. Okay, 2a over d1. I don't need to simplify it from there. I just need to know the process of how I got there. All right, if you have the notes from school, the one thing I told you guys is I made a mistake on this question. A line passes through this point. It has a slope of -5. Which function's graph intersects this line at exactly 1 point? So we had talked about making sure you guys know the difference between this is y equals mx plus b. So the m, or the slope, is -5. If this is -5 and that is -5, those are parallel lines. They're not going to cross. That would be a negative 5. So they're not going to cross. This, why I had you rewrite it. This is a negative 5. So it's not going to cross. The only one that would cross is at 5. Same setup. A line passes through this point and has a slope of 4. So we know it has a slope of 4. Which graph is parallel? So we're looking for a graph that is parallel to 4. Well, it's not going to have anything to do with 5. So A and C are out. But some of you might get a little confused with f of x equals 4 versus f of x equals 4x. So one of the things I want to show you real quick is making sure you guys knew, when you go to Desmos here, and I'll turn this on, f of x equals 4. If I just go regular 4, what kind of line is that? Well, that is a horizontal straight line. This slope is the same as any flat surface that you physically see. The desk you're maybe at right now. Any other things that you're doing every day when you sit at a desk. The floor, okay? They all have a slope of 0. So, if you know that that has a slope of 0, you guys got to understand that we're looking for a slope of 4. It is in fact that equation right there. Okay, a line passes through A, 0, and A, negative A. And if A is not 0, what is the function's graph that is parallel? Okay, so one other thing we mentioned today is I wanted to ask you guys when we did this in review is just plug in a number for A. So I told you just pick a number. Some of you picked 2, some of you picked 3. So we're going to pick a number 4. So we would write this as 4, 0. And then A would be 0, negative 4, just like that. Okay, now draw a picture. When you get to chemistry or geometry next year, you're going to want to draw plenty of pictures. And here in this illustration, we're going to draw a picture of a beautiful setup where if I go 4 over, 0 up, and negative 4, 0 down, I have that set up there, and my line looks like that. Okay, and we had just talked about in the previous example, f of x equals 1. Well, we had an f of x equals 4, and when we did that, this is a horizontal line. If we delete this and change it to 1, what do you get? You still get a horizontal line. So that cannot be something that is done, okay? Understand that that is a horizontal line, that is not parallel, so it cannot be A, nor can it be B. F of x equals A. Well, we gave a value to A, and that value was what? It was 4. So basically this would be saying f of x equals 4. That again is a straight horizontal line. The only one that it technically can be is D. Just to make sure, you guys see how that's at a slope like that? If I were to go into Desmos here, back this up, change it to an X, you guys would see it's a nice diagonal line. All right, next on this board, Julie threw a ball into the air. The ball was in the air for a time of 4 seconds. So she throws a ball. Doesn't say how high it is, just says that she threw a ball, lasted 4 seconds, landed right there, so that'd be the number 4. And then it asks, what is a reasonable range? Well, this is her domain. Left to right is her domain. Range. We need to know what is the range of this function. Well, let's be realistic. Does it say anywhere in here how high she threw the ball? No, it doesn't. All it does is it says that she threw it. So what you guys have to do is understand you can't put limitations on this problem. H is less than 0. No, that's not realistic. That would be the height of the ball is less than 0 feet. The height of the ball is less than 4. Does it say anywhere that she threw the ball less than 4 feet? That'd be right about here, throwing the ball. No, it doesn't. Would you give it a range? The answer is no, so the only thing it can be is the letter A, because the height has to be any number greater than 0. Now you look at these methods and tell me which one is correct, so I'll back out, take a look at these real quick, make sure you know. All right, on these, first thing you can do is just distribution. Like, you'd want to look and see whether or not you can distribute it correctly. So this would be 2x, that'd be 10. Then you would add 10 to both sides. Okay, when you do that, you get 14. You divide by equals 7. Hey, guess what? We're looking for the correct way. Number 1 is the correct way. Same with this distribution here. 6x minus 30. You would add 30 to both sides. That'd be 72. X is 12. They're correct. If you look, you'll see the changes of y. no distribution of 2. This should be 2 distributed to 5, 10, but instead they do -4. I don't, because they subtract the 4 from both sides. And this, the distribution is not done correct either. Here and here, the distribution is not done correctly. It's done correctly here, but the problem is that they don't do the division part right, okay? Where if you scroll down, they actually multiplied it by 6, so it's 432. So that's why they're both method A. All right, one other one that you guys need to look at, I talked about in class. 3 minus 5 is -2, bam, 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 but not here because that's a +2. Then you would subtract 7 from both sides. Subtract 7 would be -22. That is not the case here. We got 2 left. Negative and a negative divided by a negative is in fact a positive. Which equation is function notation? Now, I believe there's a misprint on here. Now, I copied this from somewhere else, but I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be an x. Function notation is basically saying that y is the same thing as f of x. We've already seen this. If I back up one slide and look at your paper, this is function notation. Okay? Function notation here, 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 and here. Instead of saying y equals a, y equals x, y equals 1, they're doing it as a function notation. So just make sure you guys are aware of that. And so if that's the case, you're just replacing this with f of x, which would be a here, and it would be b here. What equation is in the line passes through the point? This is where we begin the math portion. y2, y1, x2, x1. Okay, that's the slope formula. You plug in a point. I'm going to go with 8 over 8. And then it's minus minus because that's what that says. Now, it's going to be a 3 for my other y, and then the x is going to be a -2. -2 would change that to a positive. So you have 5 over 10, which is 1/2. If you have 1/2, it's multiple choice. You can now eliminate b and d because those are negative. So now you have to use this point slope form. Now, I have a modified version of the point slope form in my classroom. And what it is it looks like this, plus y1. Because remember, it's supposed to be y minus y1. Well, if you just add y1 to both sides, it gets already to the y equals. So I'm just going to fill in the blanks on this equation here. So it's going to be y equals my slope of 1/2. And then let's use 8 because it doesn't really matter, but it makes it a little easier sometimes. 8 and plus 8, right? So now you do your math. Distribute the 1/2 in. That's 1/2 x. 1/2 minus 8 would be -4 plus 8. And then right there you see -4 plus 8 is a +4. So my answer is going to be C. The last piece of math on here is solving for the variable x. So you first would distribute. It'd be 4x plus 10 equals 2x minus 8. Now I'm going to do this in 2 steps. In class, I went really fast with it and kind of did the ultra method, where you do it all in one shot. I will do this in 2 different shots. So -2x, -2x. And so you have 2x plus 10 equals -8. Now you want to get the 10 by itself. So you would subtract 10 from both sides. And you'd have 2x equals -18 because you're adding those together. And the last piece is divide by 2. And x equals -9. Solving simple variables, we've done it for all year. Please don't get freaked out by it and just work as best you can. Okay, now we're going to talk about a couple other ones. This is the last page, and there are quite a few math problems, and then there's a combination at the bottom. Same setup. Slope formula goes first. y2 minus y1 over x2 and x1. Doesn't matter which point you pick. I'm going to go 13 and 2 minus minus 3 and 7. So when I do that, it's going to be 10 over -5, which is -2. Once again, once I get here, I can eliminate a couple answers. On Galileo, use the strike through feature. Okay, strike right through it so it eliminates and you only see 2 answers now. So we know it's either plus or minus 17. Do your equation. Y equals, remember this is from the previous slide, -2 is my slope. X minus, and let's use the smaller one, 7 and 3. So it'd be 7 plus 3, So you got y equals negative 2x. Negative times a negative is a positive. And at that point, you guys should know that it is plus 17. What is the equation of a line that passes through a slope of 0? Remember, a slope of 0, as we had discussed earlier today, is like a floor or a desk. It's a flat line, okay? So if you have a slope of 0 right away, this has a slope of 4, this has a slope of 1, it can't be C or D. So you have to ask yourself, if you're graphing a point at 4 over 22 up, way up here, which one of these lines is correct? If you don't know, turn to Desmos and graph it, okay? Here's x equals 4, here's y equals 22. Let's blow it up a little bit and you guys can see which one of these is the horizontal line. It is the purple color. Y equals 22. All right, since we know that, now we can answer this one. So let's draw a picture. You're going negative 6 over, right? So I'm going over negative 6, down negative 1. So I'm right here. If I'm right here and I'm drawing a horizontal line, I'm drawing it at what? Y equals negative 1. Try it out if you need to, okay? Remember, it's the same setup as up here. This was y equals 22. So why wouldn't this be y equals? And it's actually at negative 1. And now here's the coup de grace at the end. And I wanted to show you guys two different ways of solving this. First is the math way, okay? So this would be 3 minus, and then you distribute the 2. So it would be 2x plus 11 equals 3x plus 6 plus 4, okay? Because I distributed the 3 in. Now you got to combine like terms. So this is going to be 3 and a, whoops, that's not positive. This is actually a negative. So this is going to be, because negative 2 times 5.5 is negative 11. So you make sure you don't make the mistake that I just did. 3 minus 11 is actually going to be negative 8. And then you have a negative 2x in front of it equals 3x, combine that together, plus 10. Now what you want to do is put your the last couple of things together, okay? So I want to move the negative over here, so I'm going to add 2x here and 2x here. So that's going to be 5x plus 10 equals negative 8. And now I'm going to move the negative, move the 10 over to this side. So that makes it 5x negative 18 equals, and then the last step would be to divide. Once I get here, I have my answer, which is right here. And you may say to yourself, well, that's a weird answer. Well, that's the answer for this particular problem. Then here's what you got to make sure you guys do, is if you're struggling with this, you can put it in your graphing calculator, leave it at, you can either leave it as a fraction or put it in the graphing calculator to get the decimal. Now, Galileo requires the decimal feature. So you'd want to plug it in and you would get negative 3.6. But let me show you a different way of doing it. Another way of doing it is actually putting this on Galileo. You can actually put it in to Desmos here. And because it's not restricted, when you take the state standardized test, it is restricted, so you may not be able to do this feature, which is you plug the original equation in and you turn it on. And what it's doing is it's making an x equals. And when x equals something, it creates a vertical line, which is right here. And if I click on the line and I click on the intersection, I get x equals what? Negative 3.6. Use this, which is the answer we got. Use this as a way to double check your answers, please. Okay? I don't want you to basically use it for the entire test, but I do want you to make sure you can double check your answers. So the other two here, you can either enter in Desmos or you can solve them out. So this would be negative 2x minus 3 equals x plus 3. And when you do that, you would basically, let me move the positive 2x over here, so I'm dealing with positivity. And when I do that, it's 3x, and then I'm going to move the negative 3 over here, so that's negative 6. So 3 divided, you get x equals negative 2. Okay, on this one over here, same setup, distribute the 7. So you have negative x equals 7x minus 14 minus 6. You would then combine like terms, so minus 20. And your last step would be to subtract 7x. All right, you get negative 8x equals negative 20. Negative divided by negative, of course, is a positive. And so x is going to equal 20 over 8. But you can take a 4 out. So if you take a 4 out, you would get 5 over 2. Or if you make it a decimal, 2.5. Study up. Good luck. This is part 1. Part 2 is coming soon in Soul 3.